Since the gacha game space is so predictable with each new launch, let's go over every single video that's going to be made about this new game, Wuthering Waves. Or I guess you can broadly apply this to basically any gacha game that'll be releasing anytime soon, I'd imagine. Maybe with a few more specific exceptions here and there. I thought we'd do this since, we're pretty close to release now, and I thought I might get ahead of the pack a little bit and get this out before the inevitable flood of Wuthering Waves content that will be upon us very soon. After all, why bother making the content itself when I can just talk about it instead? I'm pretty confident that we will be able to find videos under every single one of these categories given maybe a month or two, give or take. So yeah, we'll be taking all of these and we'll be ranking them all here on this nice little tier list, starting of course with the centerpiece of every gacha game content library, the build guide, or I guess character guides and team guides, stuff of the same vein. They're all very necessary for people like you and I, mindless gacha game players with very lacking critical thinking skills. Sometimes thinking is just a little bit too hard, and these set out to alleviate any need of that, given the video is actually any good. I find that the only time I actually ever watch build guides though is usually in the early days of a game's release, to sort of form an opinion or a general idea of how things work. And then given a little bit of time with these things, it's not too difficult to formulate a decent sense of how to build things, since these games really only expect like a base level of competence from us players. Maybe Wuthering Waves will be different, who knows. Another thing is after a bit of time, it's just so much easier to bring up one of those fan-made sites and just rip the information from there in, I don't know, a couple seconds. It's really just not worth watching a full guide. Any nuance in builds, lost on me as soon as I figure out it really just doesn't matter too much. I guess there are some people who just enjoy the simple stream of information from a creator they like, seeing how well these things actually do, so I reckon this is probably an A-tier video, but I haven't really explained what these tiers mean yet, have I? Let's go from top to bottom. S tier is simply put, quality content. It's broad appeal, high quality, well-made videos that everybody just seems to flock to. Maybe it's something novel, maybe it's something interesting, or just plain entertaining. Below that, we have A tier, the good stuff. It's worth watching, it's enjoyable, but it's nothing too special. B tier is your completely average video. It's not particularly something you'd go out your way to watch. It's just something to put on if it's from someone you like and it happens to show up. C tier is barely passing as entertainment, right? It's dirty, grimy, quick, easy slop content. The things you watch when there's just nothing better to put on, or maybe the stuff you put on when you've lost all reason as a human being and you just want to hear voices to drown the ones out in your own head. And finally, F tier. Very self-explanatory. F, failing, garbage, trash, utter shit that just shouldn't exist. So I think that's pretty easy to understand. Gameplay guides, basically every other guide that just doesn't pertain to builds. Look, any overworld puzzle guide, any boss mechanic guide, even any achievement guide, what have you. And basically, they're all just there to walk you through a part of the game for things that you just can't manage yourself. They're all, simply put, unnecessary, right? A skill issue, as some would say. Just play the damn game and learn it yourself, you lazy fuck. B tier. B for bad players. Next up, reaction content, a very divisive category. Can it really be considered content? Well, yes, of course, that little box of someone else's video is most definitely content. We all know how this works. After working up to a base level of success, you can start cashing out with easy-to-make reactions to other videos. All you need is a decently entertaining personality and a willingness to just straight rip other people's hard work. It's not that bad when maybe it's taking trailers from giant million-dollar companies, but the further down you go, the more contentious this stuff gets. At the end of the day, reaction content probably isn't great, especially with the current lack of any system that enforces credit to the original video. But for me, as someone with very little stake in the conversation and absolutely no care for any of this, I'm putting this in C tier, because I need others to tell me what to think about these videos. In a sort of category in their own, other reactions, more general reaction content, mainly stuff to do with long text posts, Reddit threads, or Twitter garbage. This stuff actually gets a tier above the video stuff, partially because people aren't going to read. So you actually have to sit there and try and make it entertaining, worth watching, It's a little bit more effort, but also mainly because you aren't ripping a video and posting it on the exact same platform it exists in. I guess, along with that, also the fact that Redditors and Twitter users just don't deserve rights. Up in B tier. I never really have to look for these types of videos because they always just show up on my YouTube page regardless. These are your basically quintessential, minimal effort reviews, put out very early on to ride the hype of a new game release. Nothing wrong with that, just your typical video of thoughts blurted out for public viewing. Something you'll watch if you like the creator, or you're just really thirsty for more content surrounding the game. I'll probably even make one of these if I have anything of note to say about the game. C tier. A better version of this is an actual full review. These things come in many forms. They might not even be explicitly called reviews. From videos like, "You should play Wuthering Waves," pointless positive posts that just lead the stray souls into a game since, they just can't think for themselves. And maybe even more critical posts with very strong clickbait like, "Wuthering Waves sucks," that exist to point out the flaws of the game. Or even just plain reviews that try to paint both sides for a fair review. All of these things have a reason to exist. There is no such thing as a perfect game, so critiques pointing out things to be fixed helps immensely, given the people behind the game actually listen to the community. Positive coverage generally drives new players since, very few people are going to give a chance to a game that only gets relentlessly shit on. The only issues are sort of when people come in, quote, reviewing a game with the intention of just trying to spread unfounded hate and brigading the game for something they don't like. It's generally up to you to be able to discern the intentions of a video like that. But as a mindless consumer myself, I know it's very difficult not to just stick to whatever narrative appears first. So, I guess, what's it matter in the end, right? B tier. Moving swiftly along to some truly pointless content, which, now that I think about it, it's a little bit niche, a little bit small of a category. I don't really need to hear that you're burnt out or you think the game is going to shit and you're going to be taking the brave move to quit the game. If you have criticism, you critique the game, right? Go ahead and do that. If you're moving on to something else, just go, move on. If you really need your loyal parasocial following to know that you're leaving, sure, go ahead. But it's not really necessary, is it? Shitty clickbait, F tier, doesn't need to exist and I don't like them. Gadget games tend to have decent stories overall, but the way you experience it really just isn't the best to be able to cohesively follow it. Generally, we'll need to wait lengthy patch cycles to read broken chunks of story. Maybe in some games you have separate side quests that expand on lore. You have event stories that may or may not be kept within the game after it's wrapped up, so possibly you have chunks of completely missing information. And then maybe even some small things like little item descriptions or books for the real deep cut shit. It's just so much easier when someone comes in and collects all this stuff, packages it up in a nice, neat video format and ships it out with explanations and links between things, instead of me having to wonder about if these things actually make sense myself. This is truly an S-tier video, doing God's work. Alright, drama. We all love some drama, you might say you don't, but the engagement and the views around some people talking some possibly unfounded claims is absolutely bewildering. There's going to be drama. There's always going to be drama. So why not just sit back and enjoy some of this silly human conflict, since it's here regardless. Maybe it'll be some small-scale disputes about the game's decisions or direction. Maybe it'll be a bunch of big creators shitting on each other with giant text dumps. Or maybe just some unhinged person being set off by the actions of a certain white bald man named Tectone. If nothing happens for too long, I'll be sure to come in with a well-placed, racially insensitive remark, and hopefully that'll serve as drama for a good few days. I'll be placing this in A tier. If there is drama, it usually means something's gone wrong, and ideally, new information comes out and better opinions are formed, and everything becomes better for it. If it's completely pointless drama with no purpose, hey, it's just free entertainment, isn't it? There's generally a couple variations of these. The main ones are either just big number showcases or beating some boss or endgame content stage with whatever team that you might have. It's all about effort here. That's the thing that I value most with these things. Generally, these should be just C-tier crap. Simple things to show, hey look, I cleared using this team by the way, to show to your friends, or maybe, wow, look at what this character can do. All very simple things that you can just show off. Not very interesting, right? However, a certain subset of these videos falls under challenge videos. Self-imposed challenges that push the limits of a game that aren't really normally considered. I personally can't help but respect a psychopath that sits there for weeks on end grinding some boss for their silly no-hit challenge run, or suffering through long-term restrictions on their account because they just have too much free time and they need a way to compensate for it. When done right, these videos can be quite entertaining, and they'll probably sit comfortably in S tier, in my opinion. I don't know if there's any better way to describe these videos, but they're basically the highly edited montages with all the dumb in-jokes, a nice shower of random visual and sound effects, you know. I personally was never into these videos, they just never clicked for me, but I can still appreciate the amount of general effort that goes into these and also the relative reception to these being pretty good. I'm just gonna put them in A tier. Right. Leaks. Keep them confined to the little Twitter bubble they float around in or the subreddit or wherever. It's pretty terrible when you're trying to avoid leaks and then they just sort of slip into your YouTube recommendations. I don't have a problem with leaks in general. I only have a problem with them when they're posted onto a platform which potentially will just blast it out to people who don't want them. F tier. Do people actually enjoy summoning videos? Because I personally don't see the allure in them. Is it like living vicariously through the other person or something? Getting the second-hand thrill of gambling away money on pulls? I don't watch them, but I do see these things just pop up whenever a new banner comes out. Like, just a bunch of real quick snippets from someone's stream pulling for the new character and whatnot. Like, most of these people are going to be spending money, so it's not a question of whether they're going to get the character or not, but rather just when. Is that exciting? Please explain this to me. C tier. This one is a little bit more specific, but there's probably enough of it to justify putting it here. Anyone who's played Genshin or just are familiar with it have undoubtedly drawn the comparison before between these two games. It is a comparison that makes sense since they are both open world RPGs with gacha elements, and yeah, it does drive clicks since it's a popular topic. But it's really just fucking obnoxious seeing it being the only notable point that anyone's wanting to speak to. No, Genshin will most likely not be killed by Wuthering Waves, unless Kuro Games decides to commit an act of terror against the Genshin development team. Those people who like Genshin will stick with Genshin, because there's been fuck all to do for quite a while, and they've still stuck with it. Hopefully, Wuthering Waves will serve to be a worthwhile competitor to Genshin, and maybe have both of them need to improve as a result, because, of course, competition is good for both sides. Without competition, one of them can just decide to not do anything and still reap all the rewards since they're the only good game around. Or at the end of the day, maybe we'll just get another game to play alongside Genshin, given that you're a loser with no commitment and a lot of time to burn on gacha games. Either ways, these videos are F tier. These are all just clickbait, and I would like you to try and clickbait with some other garbage titles instead, please. Just be a little bit more original, come on. And finally, what better way to round things off with, of course, the tier list video. A very popular video type because it's just so easy to rattle off some bullshit on just about anything when you're out of ideas and you need something out. There's obviously a very big variance in quality between different tier lists. The work and effort to put an objective tier list out of character strength with good reasoning and justification for placements would be a lot higher than, say, your generic waifu tier list. Or even just other tier lists of the same goal even. I have a big problem with objective tier lists which I can't really explain succinctly. Maybe I'll expand on this at some point with another video, but mainly it's just that they're usually just shit at what they do. They're trying to overgeneralize nuanced things and place them into nicely defined tiers that usually either just leaves a mess with really easy to see problems with placements, or it just ends up with you having to double down and say, this is right because of this, and ignore everything else. A very general subjective one, however, I personally see as fine. It's just an opinion, isn't it? You don't think too much about it. B tier, average, alright, good enough to spend a little bit of time on. Apart from this one, of course, which is an S tier video, because this is my list. I really hope I haven't missed anything obvious from here. Please do mention it to me if I have, and feel free to disagree with any of my placements from my very opinionated list. You will be wrong, but you're still free to do so. Maybe I'll make some of these videos myself even, so stick around if you're interested, and I wish you all a wonderful day.